my name is Zarina Hutcherson.
My name is Cheyenne Oliveira.
I'm Jasmine Miller-Kleinhans.
I'm Thomas Grant.
Hello, I'm Mikaelia.
And I live in the Metro Atlanta cluster.
I'm from the Metro Atlanta cluster.
And I live in Decatur, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta.
So I live here in Metro Atlanta. I'm an auxiliary board member for propagation for the state of Georgia.
And I'm currently serving as one of the junior youth coordinators for the cluster.
I've been involved with the Baha'i faith for about 4 years now, and I recently became Baha'i about a year ago. And I've been able to serve as a tutor, an animator, and a children's class teacher. So the Institute camps, the Southeast are organized in conjunction with like the ABMs from the Southeast and with guidance from the counselor. They decided to organize like a series of camps that were for like the region rather than like more local camps. And I think the idea behind it was that like the pandemic had been, like a ever-present force, and kind of there weren't as much activities and people were kind of isolated. So we were thinking to have like the youth come together to build more momentum for the whole region.
So in the last, really 2020 was a really important moment for our country and really for the world. And it's not that we haven't been trying to work with young people, but I think in that moment we recognized that in order for there to be change, real lasting change, we need to start bringing youth together to study the Institute courses and empower them to become these agents of change in their communities.
So June of 2022, there was like this camp, and it was sent out for like Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina. And it was a 12-day camp. It was the first that we ever had that was that big. And over those 12 days, about 130 or near 150 youth were able to participate.
With the aim to think about like how can we study, really trying to apply the message from the Universal Justice, the Institute being the sacred charge of the youth. Really, that was really the impetus of the whole beginning of the series of camps.
It's been a really wonderful experience, to be like able to contribute to do outreach in my community, and like doing it with other youth my age, from many different backgrounds and perspectives. I think was really nice. I think sometimes we have these Baha'i camps, but often they're kind of like insular. Sometimes it's difficult to kind of transport that drive for service back home. But I think it was really awesome to have a camp where we were able to study in the morning and kind of be inspired and understand and read the writings and memorize, and then just that afternoon after lunch go straight out into the field and put those things into action. I think it was definitely a different experience. I think it was a really helpful experience for me to have that twofold moral purpose being in the same day.
One of the unique things about the camp, the initial camp in 2022, was that typically we had maybe the Baha'i youth come together for stuff. We had neighborhood-based camps, and this time having one that was regional, and we decided we're just going to try to bring all these youth together. But with that there's different makeups, racial makeups, there's different socioeconomic statuses, there's different faith-based makeups, but really race probably stood out the most just because we're in the Southeast.
So at first in the camps, people were kind of in their geographic regions, which also meant racial groupings, and it was kind of becoming noticeable. It's natural for people to be with their friends, but I think when we were noticing that it was also along racial lines, at first we were there's an interesting, it's a Baha'i camp, so we're trying to figure out how can we apply Baha'u'llah's revelation even to our social spaces when we're eating dinner, and who we're doing our arts with. And so I would say in the beginning of the camp, the friendships, a lot of people were seeing each other for the first time, or a lot of people were hanging out with their friends for much longer than they ever had from their even local region that they don't get to see often. So people were kind of with their groups from their local region.
By really the third day, the tutors came together to reflect, and we're like, what can we do to address this? It was very obvious. And we really took some special initiatives. So we reflected really on the story about Louis Gregory, and how can we really think about giving the seat of honor to the Black youth who are coming. And that I think that really inspired all of the tutors to really think about, it was a really shift in thinking. And then when we think about the July 22nd, 2020 message about this profound alteration of thought and action that's required at this time, the tutors were like, okay, we need to really shift our own thinking as well. And then what conversation can we have with our participants in our study circles? So we went ahead and actually, after studying the message, we, in our own study circles, we said, okay, if this is what the House of Justice is saying about this profound alteration of thought and action, what can we do?
By the middle of the week, people started, I think like the tutors were reflecting each night on like how can we infuse the spirit with like of the camp with like much more like fellowship, like amongst people that didn't know each other before, amongst people that looked different from each other. And I think that by the middle of the camp, more and more people were starting to like branch out and be with people from different backgrounds, different localities. And I think a big part of it too was like our outings. I think in the middle of the week, we got to go to the Civil Rights Center. And on that trip, a lot of people were kind of like mingling and like walking in groups with like different people that they hadn't really interacted much with. And then it was followed by going to Sweetwater, where we got to like hang out and like canoe for the day and things like that. So I think a lot of people just started branching out by that time with the support of like the tutors being like kind of encouraging people to like branch out, talk to new people, thinking about the implications of a space that's segregated by race, and thinking about how that wasn't necessarily the culture we were trying to build.
So I think for the Universal House of Justice in particular, they recognize it as how we described it was this, this international body that is guiding the whole world, Baha'i or not, to seek out true justice. And so that resonates with everyone. People recognize injustice in many levels across the world, and to say that there's this body that is looking at the entire world and saying, these are what will lead us to justice. In addition to the Baha'i writings, people really, so they want to turn to the House of Justice. They're excited by it.
Every single time we study the letter, I always hear such amazing things from people that often seem like a little bit more reserved and quiet. But one of like my favorite things that I heard was one of the youth was expressing that he was like overjoyed that the Universal House of Justice was writing almost to him. And it made him, like he said, it made him feel like very special because he's like, wow, the Universal House of Justice is thinking about us. And he was like, they're noticing like what we do. And so it's just like really nice to hear that people were like taking what the Universal House of Justice said as their own.
And then we actually do spend time talking about the administrative order with the young people. We say this is the House of Justice. And here's the flow of administrative support that you have. And so that way, when they see the counselor who comes to every camp and participates in some way, shape, or form, when they see the auxiliary board members, when they see the local spiritual assemblies, they recognize that this is actually out of the love of the House of Justice, that we're all here supporting them, and we're trying to enact this guidance that they just read. So there's no separation of just, you know, an intellectual reading of what the House of Justice has shared. They see it, people trying to actually act on it and reflect on it and adjust it in real time. And then they too then feel empowered to say, let me take the House of Justice message and see what it looks like when I try to apply it. And then I have a space to reflect and consult with others. So it's been nice.
In terms of also strengthening the friendships of like people from different backgrounds at the camps, I would say the art sessions really helped. So one night we did like a paper mache where we had to like make masks of our face with newspaper, and that's like a very like personal process. You have to like be like pressing down on somebody's face, and it was really nice to see different people doing that project together and like meeting each other for the first time and like being able to do this very collaborative art project together. Some of the nights too, like a lot of people would join the music, and people that didn't maybe necessarily see themselves as singers or rappers or anything, somehow like bridging together their interest in like the quote itself and like what they got out of it helped to like inspire like a melody or something like that. And so I think the arts nights definitely helped a lot. And I feel like that was one of the spaces where I definitely saw like burgeoning friendships, because sometimes it was really cute actually seeing like people start to feel comfortable being in the whole space. There were some nights I would like overhear people's conversations where they're trying to convince their friends to go to art with them. And they're like, I don't really want to do that art. And it's like, well, y'all don't have to go to the same art. And so like people were being able to branch out and do new things with new people.
During the course of the camps, a lot of youth seem to have like opened themselves up and come out of their shells. And one of the youth that lives here in the Metro Atlanta cluster with me, every single time I always see her leave with like a ton of new friends and a ton of new numbers. And it's always so awesome to see how much everybody actually wants to be friends with each other now. And the amount of new declarations that we've had at the camps as well is also like really amazing. Like people that have heard about the Baha'i faith like a month ago and they are coming to the camps, and everybody just seems really happy and thrilled to be around each other.